2018, we started the LCS as a franchise league. We had shut down the open qualifiers, promotion relegation was gone, and we replaced that with the Academy League. And the goal of the Academy League was to develop up-and-coming talent in North America so that our LCS teams had a constant pool to pull from as they attempted to better their teams and develop talent. That didn't really hit our goals in 2018, so we started to look at ways that we could refresh the system. So we started working with Faceit, and Faceit ran the Faceit scouting grounds for us. I believe 2019 and 2020, my kind of time in COVID is all kind of blended together for me. But they were running a scouting ground circuit that allowed teams of 5 to play in through various amateur competition and wind up at our scouting grounds event with the goal of having those players get noticed and recognized. They would work through scouting grounds with professional coaches and analysts and hopefully would wind up on a team. And for the most part, that was successful, but it still wasn't hitting all of our marks, right? We realized that we did a lot of damage to the amateur ecosystem in 2018 when we closed everything off. Right? We just didn't give that scene the attention or the consideration that it deserved. So the move to Faceit was some recognition of that. We wanted to provide some path for amateur teams to begin to develop talent, to get their name and brand on broadcast. So we carried that through to scouting grounds and to continue to foster the scene. So sometime in the middle of last year, we sat down and decided to look for a revamp on the amateur and academy system again. It still wasn't hitting the goals that we had to continue to develop talent in North America and create what really is an aspirational path for talent. So out of that came Proving Grounds. So we cut the academy season in half so that academy teams would have more freedom to go and play in third-party amateur tournaments. We thought that would be good for the academy teams, right? They can go out and try to win some prize pools, play against some varied competition. It's good for amateur tournament organizers who now have LCS brands that are playing in their tournament. It's good for developing amateur players because now they're not just limited to solo queue to play against pro players or aspiring pro players. They're getting to play actual 5-on-5 games against academy players, and they matter, right? You can win, you win tournaments, you win prize pools, you win a chance to go play in Proving Grounds. Proving Grounds itself is a tournament that's going to be played after the conclusion of the LCS Spring Split in the middle of April, and it's going to continue on for a couple of weeks past that. The idea of it is that we're going to take the top 16 teams, kind of sub-LCS, so it's academy teams and amateur teams, and we're going to put them in a tournament against each other, and they're going to play through to win both a trophy and a prize pool. Right? The idea here being that if we open up the ecosystem a lot more than we have in the past and give amateur teams an opportunity to come in and play against academy teams, not only will they get better, but we'll get more visibility on those teams and players and hopefully kind of raise the tide and raise all boats in the ecosystem overall. So your actual question was whether it was hitting our goals. We don't know yet. So far, so good. The T2 tournaments, the Tier 2 tournaments have been great so far. Have been super entertaining to watch. We're getting good feedback. We found problems in the system, right? Things that we didn't think about when we were building the system, that the LCS teams didn't think about when we were building the system, that we're now trying to fix going forward. But we feel good about where we are. We're getting ready to kick off Tier 1 tournaments. We're going to start qualifying some teams into Proving Grounds. We now have our 6 academy teams that have qualified in, and we're going to be looking to qualify the additional 10 teams that will play them in Proving Grounds at the end. So we feel good so far, but still a little ways to go before we can sit down at the end of spring and evaluate whether this did everything that we wanted it to. Most of the observations we've taken back so far have been around the academy teams, right? Because as you noted, their season just wrapped up, their spring split just wrapped up yesterday. So, right now we have 6 academy teams that don't have a competitive game to play for the next 5 weeks. Like that's a problem, right? There's we're going to have 2 patches in that time. There's going to be meta shifts, and we want to make sure that those teams are finding some competitive outlet that's not just scrimming the same 5 teams over and over again. So we're talking to team owners about what that might look like. At the same time, we do want the community focused on the Tier 1 tournaments that are going to be happening over the next 5 weeks. I think it's going to be kind of an exciting end to our amateur split as we're qualifying teams into proving ground. So if I had to call out one thing that we're looking to change, that hole in the schedule would certainly be one. But as we're going forward, we're spending a lot of time talking to amateur teams, amateur players, and amateur tournament organizers to take their feedback and kind of sit down and retro what we've been doing so that we can make changes going forward. But I don't have anything more concrete in terms of the feedback we've been taking in and the adjustments that we'll make going forward. So the easiest way is generally Twitter. So kind of pinging us, pinging myself or Matt Naja, who was at CLG and has joined us and is overseeing Academy and Amateur going forward, Riot Whoopley, Zach Elliott, and Derek Dennis, Riot Ice Chest, pinging any of us or all of us in a tweet. DMs are a little harder, right? Sometimes I'll go into Twitter DMs or someone else on the team will and realize that someone that we're not following sent us a message 3 weeks ago and we just never saw it. But pinging someone in on a tweet and providing some feedback, whether it's directly in a Twitter thread or a link out to another document or just some general thoughts that we can follow up on are always good. I think right now we have some collegiate teams that are playing in our Tier 1 and Tier 2 tournaments, so they found their way in. But we are just this year we brought the competitive collegiate League of Legends space into the kind of LCS structure. So I mentioned Matt Naja a minute ago. He came over and joined us from CLG, where he was running esports for them for a couple of years, and it's now going to help us build a better and more cohesive amateur and scholastic ecosystem. So there may be some output of that where college and the amateur tournaments are more closely aligned. There's certainly a world in which they continue to run in parallel, and there is the ability for collegiate teams to cross over and play in amateur. But I think we still have some work to do around that. Ultimately, we want to open as many doors as we can for people who want to play competitive League of Legends. So that that'll be our North Star as we continue to iterate and make changes.